You're live.
We are live. Okay. Still, karaoke version. Not a bad idea. Get a bunch of people in here.
Yeah.
By in here, I mean
Yeah.
on Discord. I don't need a bunch of jagoffs talking over me. Let's not forget who's in charge.
There we go. Pull up
Can
the stream.
is anybody watching and or listening? You know, same rules apply. We're waiting for some
We've got 2.
people to straggle in. I'm sure Kayla's out there somewhere. How do we sound, Kayla? I hope good. How does RJ? No, not RJ. RJ's not here. PJ's here.
Oh my god, we're gonna do that again.
That'll
It'd be worse
happen.
if we were both here because then it would just never work.
No, you wouldn't even be used by those names. You'd have different names.
Why is it that you guys, everybody who comes on the show, who comes in pairs, either has names that start with the same letter and are incredibly similar, or are 2 letters and one of them is J? So I
Hi, Mom.
refuse to be the one at fault here. It's like,
Mom says we sound good.
all right, same with sound good. Check.
I can't wait to listen to myself afterwards and see how it sounds
You know,
in comparison.
I feel like every time I check, either I'm too anxious or too testy or too something. Because every time after the show, I go and check and do a spot check, quality check, you know, and it sounds like shit. And I'm like, ugh. I check back a little bit later and it's not so bad. And then a little bit later again and it's a little less bad. So I don't know if YouTube just has like an anti-suck feature that just takes a long time. But they're fucking, that's what I'm saying, is like they're pulling it overtime.
I need to I actually want to try streaming to YouTube instead of Twitch and see how that goes.
It's pretty sick, dude. Pretty easy too. And I don't know. I like YouTube better because I feel like Twitch is not my scene.
Well, it's not your scene
I mean-
because you don't really play video games.
Right. But even if I did play video games, I think I would still do it on YouTube.
They have talk shows on Twitch. They have a talk show channel.
I think I'm just too old a man. I'm stuck to the old timer classics, like your Facebooks and your YouTubes.
I
Hey,
mean,
let me-
before Twitch existed, it was Justin TV. So
Yeah, I remember that. But let me ask you this, PJ. Like,
Mhm.
I think I'm just gonna tell everybody to shut the hell up when it comes to social media. I'll listen to RJ maybe, but everybody's like, "Oh, Facebook's so old." Facebook's so old. Finally had a realization. Like, since no one else can tell me what's new, and literally everybody else is already on Facebook, I'm just gonna stay there. There you go.
I mean, if honestly, I think the best one to use right now is Twitter.
Oh, but it's so impersonal, PJ. I feel like it's so impersonal.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like
140
it's just well, yeah, but like the reach is bigger. It's easier to get out to other people.
I would like my reach to be deep, not wide.
Yeah.
That's in everything I do. what are we at here? I feel like we're already launching into show topics. How many people are
4.
here? Have we pulled enough people away from their horrible? What is it? A Tuesday. They're boring. Oh, God, look at my shirt. It says Taco Tuesday, and it has a pizza on it.
Yeah.
I wore that because it's a joke and it's Tuesday. Oh shit! I'm showing the camera, but I have not switched over yet because the show has not started. So when
yes,
the show
accurate.
starts, I will then again hold up my shirt.
Yeah.
But until then, you ain't gonna see it. You heard it. Maybe you can hear it again. Watch. You hear that? That's my shirt.
Dumb.
You gotta. This is a medium where you have to prove things to people. I will not need a fact checker for this show. People will hear the shirt and then they will see the shirt. We're close enough. Why don't we go ahead and start? Krista, roll the music.
All right.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
welcome to the show. My name's Dave, and this is an impromptu show. We're going to hang out, talk to a guest about stuff, just sort of pass the time. So, without further ado, please help me in welcoming. I still have not got, maybe just my go-to. My go-to guy. There's got to be a guy, though, so whatever. You know who it is. It's PJ. He's back on the show.
The one and only Poop Jay.
One and only
Poop
poop job.
Jay.
Well, there was a poop job, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one
The
RJ,
sequel.
but 2 poop jobs. The second was Return of the Killer poop job. Still, can't get his ass on the show, though. Very, very busy guy. Seems
Who? RJ?
No, Virus.
Oh.
RJ we got.
Oh, yeah.
Virus is very important.
I don't
guy.
know how he's busy.
Yeah, me neither. Nor can the rest of the world. But I assume science will someday deliver me an answer. So let's slow it down a little bit. I have no hashtag for Tuesday, except for now you can see my shirt, Taco Tuesday, and there's a pizza on it.
What?
We got this shirt.
Breaking the rules.
We got this shirt in Flagstaff. It's a local reference. So
Is it?
yeah, cause well, I guess if you're familiar with Arizona, you'll get the reference. But it's a town in northern
I've been
Arizona.
to Flagstaff.
You've been to Flagstaff?
Yeah.
Nice. You're pretty far away to get to Flagstaff.
Well, I went there when I visited my brother.
I vaguely remember
Do you have
this.
family here?
I was just in Arizona in last September.
Right, that's right. Because now
And
you're
you
bringing it all
totally
back to me.
ignored
Because
us.
every time you come
I
here,
went
you
there
give us
for
the
a wedding.
cold
I was
shoulder.
literally only there for the weekend.
Yeah, I remember.
That's what everybody says. I can't tell you how many people give me the cold shoulder and then do it to my face later. Cold face.
I was in the wedding too, so I really had to do like bachelor's party,
Did we
wedding
have
prep,
no-
and then actual wedding.
Was there no such thing as like phones back then? You could have live streamed me like holding the phone at the wedding. I would have wore it like from the waist up. I would have wore a suit.
Also, I'd like to point out that having an outdoor wedding in Arizona in September is miserable.
Yeah.
It can be.
We got married in March, and that was like the perfect.
It was okay.
weather.
The problem
It
with,
was like 110
yeah.
degrees.
Yeah, and that's like up north in Flagstaff, right?
Yeah, we were
Well,
we
imagine
weren't
what it
far
was
from
here.
Phoenix. We
Yeah, it
were
depends. Like,
like
here's
2
the
hours from
thing.
Phoenix, I want to say.
Everybody, gets, boners over all their seasons and stuff. I don't care. I grew up without them. In Arizona, you have no seasons. You have what it's.
You have a rainy season.
Yeah, we didn't have one this year, so you can't say that always.
Hey, it drizzled for 4 seconds today.
I don't remember. Today?
In the
Oh, I must have
backyard.
missed it.
Smelled like rain, and it lasted 8 seconds.
Yeah, we have a smells like rain season, PJ.
Right?
You can,
Does Kurt Cobain just show up and start singing?
yeah, no. Yeah. He changed the lyrics just for us. And he didn't kill himself. That's the thing. He's been living in Arizona.
That's where the tears are.
The tears?
Yeah, that's where the rain comes from. Kurt Cobain's tears, apparently.
Well, this is stretched a little thin. He did not mention rain in the song "Smells Like Teen Spirit," right?
Yeah, there's no rain in there.
Just making sure. Make sure we're off the rails here.
A little bit off the rails.
So let's touch base with the typing square. We don't have any set topics to talk about. We're just sort of hanging out. I've got some stuff that my old wells, dinosaurs, Lovecraft, the like, photography. What do you got? What do you bring to the table, PJ? People are tuning in, and why? Why sell yourself to these people?
I mean, all I've been doing lately is playing like 2 games and just cycling between the 2 of them.
Well, when you okay, this is something to talk about, PJ, because now that we're stuck inside most of the time or whatever, most of us are still hanging out mostly at home. The problem is humans cannot be offered more than like 6 choices before you're just paralyzed with fear. Like if you walk into a place and there are 3 or 4 things to choose from. There's usually like a cheap brand, an expensive brand, and a couple of mid-range that you usually end up with. But now there are so many things vying for your attention, be they video games or music or movies or TV shows or whatever, YouTube videos, or like I feel like every time now I talk to someone, they've only been doing one thing, and I that is why, because like when you're on a raft in the ocean, it's hard to jump off.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things. I've still not checked out the 2nd season of the Scary House on Netflix.
The Scary House?
What's it called? Haunting of Bly Manor is the 2nd
Bly
season.
Manor, yeah.
First one was Haunting of
Well,
Hill
I
House.
don't know if that's the sequel. I thought that was just something different.
No, it's technically the sequel.
I
It's the same people, right?
sort of saw all of it. I wasn't really watching it, but it was on because my fiance was watching it, so I saw most of it.
So you're just like walking past sometime and you would see a ghost.
I mean,
How many of the hidden ghosts did you see? I bet there's a lot of those.
It's different than I thought it would be. I'll say that. The whole show is the show as a whole.
Is it, well, based on your limited passerby experience,
Mm-hmm.
do the characters seem a little less like aliens than they did in the first season?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's very layered.
Okay, how about, you saw the first season, right?
No,
Well, because
I don't think they're the same. I don't think they're the same
I don't
thing. I
think
think
it
Bly
is
Manor's
either.
its own thing.
Yeah,
Right,
it's not on the
but
same...
that doesn't preclude you from watching the first one.
I don't think it's the second season. I think
No.
it's its own thing.
Right.
I'm
I think it's
sure.
on a different streaming platform.
No,
Isn't
it's
it
on Netflix.
Hulu? Oh, I thot it was on Hulu.
No,
But I
I
don't
know I'm
think-
not crazy.
No.
So you didn't see The Haunting of Hill House, though? That's what
No.
we're getting at. Okay, so no common ground there. I'm digging here, PJ, but the mine is bearing no fruit. This hole is dry.
I know. It's because I'm terrible when it comes to watching stuff lately. Like,
Pop culture is hard to
Really
keep up
bad.
to, and it's really easy to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
I've also never really been much of a person to watch things.
You know,
Like, I used to watch a lot of things when I was younger, and then as I got older, I only watched like the stuff that really caught my attention.
yeah.
So like every so often, there's like one show where I'll really just be like fully engrossed in. Although I'm always engrossed in Star Wars stuff, so that doesn't count. Like
Mhm.
I've watched the first episode of The Mandalorian season 2 already.
well,
I've seen it twice actually.
Well, let me ask you this. So, like, because that's my problem too, is like I find that my time is stretched very thin, so it's easier to take in like, reviews and or breakdowns and or play-by-plays of stuff, so you can kind of get the idea. But because let's be real, if I wasn't, and it's still in the works, everybody, if you're waiting for it, it's still in the works. But if I wasn't being forced to watch Cobra Kai, I would not be watching Cobra Kai. I would watch a review, something like I'm about to do eventually, and then call it a day, because it is not worth my time, and I'm frankly regretting it every day. And I know I'm going to have to go back
that's
to
a
it.
terrible endorsement.
It's
Right.
I was never a Karate Kid fan from the jump. So I'm already not endeared to these characters. Like, I don't have the nostalgia goggles. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I'm kind of coming at it with fresh eyes. Like, I have a passing familiarity. However, I don't have a deep-seated love of these characters. So I'm just going based on it as a show, and it sucks. Like, it was like, imagine if like a wizard somehow made a magic spell and was able to conjure from the ether every cliche in the known universe and somehow amalgamate them into a physical manifestation, a la a writer for a television show, let's say. That is what this man would produce. It's so like paint by numbers. Like, here's the thing, if you like paint by numbers, or if you like those bejeweled art, like diamond art things, if you like knowing where you're headed, this will fill that slot. It will never surprise you. You'll never be like, oh, but you will be like, if you're me, because like it feels like every scene is a telegraph from the next scene being like, here's what's coming. Huh? But, you know, also my most recent experience is Karate Kid 3.
I don't even know if I saw 3.
That was not a good one. I'll tell you that. You know, everything everybody likes about the Karate Kid, I'm pretty sure is just Mr. Miyagi. Ralph Macchio sucks. Like, Daniel-san sucks. Like, his whole legacy is constantly screwing up. Mr. Miyagi taking it in kind, like, getting his shit ruined, getting something stolen, getting almost beaten up, constantly saving Danny's life. And I have to be like, he's got to go to bed at least 1 or 2 nights a week being like, one day, Danny, one day, learn something for, once. Oh, but
Mr. Miyagi's got a lot of patience.
that's all he is. Like, but that's it though. Take away Mr. Miyagi, and if it were just like your average white guy or whatever, because like whatever, watch those movies at your own peril is what I will say. Because if you didn't grow up on them, they're very flat. They feel very and now. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. So I've got a lot to say about it because it's like here, sitting behind me. Like, these are the notes for the first 5 episodes. For you can hear them, PJ.
Yeah,
A lot of them, and they're just sitting here, and I can't do anything with them until I can get someone to take the time, the 5 hours out of their life, come talk about it. But
Replace Miyagi with Seagal, Andy says.
I don't know. You have to be Miyagi above all is likable. That's the thing. Miyagi never comes off as aloof or anything other than supportive, and Seagal could never come off as anything other than at most, completely detached. Like, at worst, he'll like actively be rooting against you in the movie. Like, not intentionally, but he's such a shitty actor, it'll just come off that way.
yeah.
But that's the way it is. But that's the great thing about Pat Morita was like, without him, that movie would be nothing. Ugh. They should have called it
must
Mr.
feed my
Miyagi
pizza
and the
demons.
Asshole He Taught. 1, 2, and 3.
Pretty much. I know you're not a giant Star Wars fan, but Mandalorian is very good.
I'm so not a giant Star Wars fan that I'm not even a small Star Wars fan. Some would say I would wish harm upon Star Wars.
So, but the Mandalorian is actually good. I think that would be something more that you would like than, because it's not like the movies at all.
Here's the thing: if you have to say it's actually good, I'm already not sold. Like, they've already made all the money in the world. What possible stories could they tell that needs to be told in the Star Wars universe? It's a franchise that's been going for 70, 80 years. At this point, like, I'm ready for a completely different franchise. I'm ready for a completely different IP. Like, as much as I love all the things that I love, eventually you get tired of being in the same place all the time, right?
Not me. I
enjoy. I like a story ending. And if we're constantly dipping back into that world,
they're doing a whole new section of Star Wars that takes place, like, I think it's 400 years before everything. So it's like a whole new era.
If you explain to me, because Star Wars legacy encompasses 4,000 or 5,000 years, how is it that does not bother literally anybody but me. That you could jump forward or backward half or up to a millennia, and the technology, the fashion, the language, it's all exactly the same.
No, see, that's what I mean. Like the new one that's gonna be the new stuff that's coming. They had showed like concept art from it, and it's very different. Like very different.
But that's the thing. Why keep going back to that same well and like it's mashed potatoes again, but there's a little
I mean, have
butter.
you met Disney?
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
They just all they're doing right now, instead of really making many new films, is just remaking live actions of all the films that they've made
Yeah,
since the beginning of time.
that's not good. That sucks.
Oh no, they're terrible. The
Yeah,
live
that's what
I
I'm
haven't
saying. Like,
I don't think a single live action film has been that good.
no,
To be honest.
but not rebooting everything and doing it the same except a different medium is why are you doing that? It's creatively bankrupt. And why do we have to keep living in these, like the Terminator franchise got so long and drawn out. I feel so bad for them. Like it's a walking corpse and a laughing stock of what it once was. Like there are some franchises that can take time after time after time because they are the shitty junk food of cinema. Your Jasons, your whatevers. But like, in these places where, we're invited to step into these fleshed out worlds, like I don't feel like I want to live in a Star Wars world forever. I love Star Trek and I want to talk about it often, but I get tired of it eventually. Like I love it, but I wouldn't want to live there 24/7. And that's why all these reboots are going nowhere. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. You can't pluck out something from a time period like TNG. Everybody wants to see TNG again. However, it cannot exist because it is a product of its time. It's the late 80s, early 90s. It touches upon those issues. People aren't expecting as much of it. But now it's turned into like this huge action franchise and it's become completely different. And why not, instead of like saying, hey, let's make Star Trek, but do something completely different that Star Trek hasn't been? Because even with Kirk, it was never action packed. It was always like, it's the future. We're smarter than that.
Right.
So to go further ahead in time, but to go backward, like, diplomatically, because how would you go from when Picard is not necessarily young, but an old young man, and all of the universe's problems have been solved simply because of replicators? There's no scarcity for literally anything. So how are we jumping ahead 30 years to now there's scarcity and war and all these other things that we'd already dealt with? Like, there's no such thing as money in TNG. But you see, now I'm getting drawn into it, and it's a world that need be, and it should be left. Like I would like to reminisce about how it used to be and have it be its thing. But now Star Wars can be literally anything. It's action, it's adventure, it's spies, it's like thrillers, it's like, speeder bikes, and it's cartoons, it's everything now. So when you say you like Star Wars, that's like saying you like water because it's everywhere, it's ubiquitous.
Yeah, I mean, hey, The Mandalorian's like a Western, so...
Right, but that's the thing. I like Westerns. I don't need my Westerns to have the veneer of Star Wars. I like to see... Maybe that's it. A lot of people will look at certain genres and be like, I like that genre. I was that way about Westerns. Speaking of Westerns, because I was like, I don't, I live in the Southwest. I've got enough of cowboys, yada, yada, yada. But stories are the same no matter where you go. Like, you have antagonists, protagonists, there's conflict and resolution, and 9 times out of 10, it follows the 3-act structure. Sometimes you get the rug pulled out from under you or whatever. So there's no new stories. It's just down to how the story is told and the characters they're in. So why, when, like, in an infinite world of possibilities, when you're limited solely by your own imagination, are we stuck to recycling stories that have to be set in these safe worlds that we know are bankable?
I think it's just because that they've fleshed it out so much. A lot of this stuff is coming from the books and whatnot too.
Right, but and that's the thing. It's like comic books now. You can say you're into comics, but that's again like saying you can say you've swam in the ocean. You can't say you've swam in all the oceans because you never will. There's too much of it to do. Like you'll never know all Star Wars lore unless you're one of those guys. You don't want to be one of those guys.
I am one of those guys.
Uh,
I have seen every episode of the animated series. I've read and or listened to all of the books that have come out since they switched canon.
So here I'm gonna give not let no one say I'm not open-minded. I always take the opportunity for people to try and tell me what is so great about Star Wars that I cannot get somewhere else and like a little bit deeper.
Well, I think when they were making the prequels, and then when they fast forward like 7 or 8 years afterwards, when they started making the animated series, the animated series did a very good job of fleshing out what they tried to do with the prequels and failed terribly at, just by adding one character.
But,
and it changed Anakin's dynamic, and it just made more sense of his transformation to Vader.
But that just feels like the retcon and justifying something that was a dumpster fire. Like if you have to go back and be like, oh, remember all that stuff that was terrible and no one liked? Here's the reason. Like that feels like a long con to me. Like if you had to go through 3 movies.
It's just that nowadays, like, I have a strong feeling that like any of these long movies, like even if you say Lord of the Rings, for instance, I think if you tried to come out with Lord of the Rings films now, I don't think it would work as well as if you just came out with series, because the series gives more time to flesh out the stories and allow them to be told in a different way. And just like even for instance with the Witcher show that just came out not that long ago, like I think the Witcher coming out as a series was better off for it because it allowed them to give more story and give more depth to it without having to rush in a 2-hour time span.
Well, I think my problem is not how fleshed out and how intricate and how great George's lips taste after he applies cherry chapstick to give all his fans a nice big wet one. My problem is Star Wars has got enough ink, enough cellulose, enough digital media, enough. They've been on Taco Bell cups. Like, my thing is, what is it about that world that is so appealing that keeps people coming back? Is it simply the nostalgia? Because when you look at it, there are a lot of things that don't make sense. And if you're a person like me, you want to look at those things. And if someone says, or if I'm going to say, why is this? It doesn't make sense to me. You can't wave your hand in front of my eyes and be like, Jedis move in mysterious ways, because that's stupid and I can't accept that. Like when I say, every time I ask, why would anybody... Now, I realize that in a movie, when lasers actually leave your gun 400 or 500 times slower than bullets, a light sword would work. But in reality, where lasers are, they're fast as light because they're made of light. A sword would be utterly useless in that scenario. Yeah,
I mean, I think just for me, I like the characters. I like that there's a lot of hands in the pot because you get different stories. So like some of the authors who write the books do a very good job of creating their own things within the universe that just become part of the universe.
So is it just the aesthetic that pulls you in? Like it's the hominess of the world?
I like the general aspect of the world. I like, I think that the Jedi are actually the least, like it's the least fun thing about the world are the Jedi. They're like the worst. They're literally the worst. They're the worst part of the whole universe, in all honesty. Like it's the other interactions that you get with people. I think it's part of the reason why I like Mandalorian more.
Right.
Like,
okay.
a lot.
Here, you bring up an interesting point that now I'm going to jump on. So you're saying, like the whole point of Star Wars is, the rebellion and the alliance and yada yada and these Jedi and blah blah blah. And if you're saying, and I would agree with you because they are the lamest part. But then that's like saying, that's why zombie movies, people don't go for the zombies, they go for the interesting characters. And I think people were, if you're looking for those interesting character moments, I get that, this world is fleshed out and huge and you've got, 4 or 5 decades of this lineage. But the thing that keeps bringing people back, aside from like tying to, so let me ask you this: when did you come across Star Wars? Were you a younger person or like a teenager? Or what?
I think the first time I saw one that I distinctly remember, I was like 11 or 12 when they re-released the movies with Dolby surround sound in the theaters. Was when I first saw them.
Okay, so like what, 92 probably, something like that?
In the
When those VHSs
something like mid 90s, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I would love to be like one of everybody else because I feel like I have this need to pick things apart, and when I have all these problems and I'm like, why is all their technology like vacuum tubes and like how is this happening? Like I don't know. So why the swords? I don't know. Well, so what's the deal with is it magic or is it bugs? I don't know. It's just like it's so muddled and all the retcons and like all the weird re-releases with the extra footage always like feels like it cheapens it a little every time it came out again and again and again. I felt like again like not that I'm into forced scarcity, but if you have a fond memory, the worst thing you can do is go back to where that memory was made and do that same thing over again. Because now that thing is no longer like you can do it a little bit differently every time. Like the swing set of my preschool I loved, but if I were still doing it today, I would be bored.
Yeah, but stuff changes.
I get it, but I feel like if it's an interesting story, why can't it live by itself? I realize Disney wants to make all the money in the world and own all the intellectual properties, and that people like who love Star Wars are willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
people nowadays are too afraid to do new IPs.
But then what? Where are we if all we've got left are anything that'll make $1 billion is anything anybody will make? So you're like Marvel is safe. Your Star Wars.
It's crazy because with the Marvel stuff, where they pretty much ended the Marvel movies in the cinematic universe was from like the late 90s in the comics. So there's still 20 years plus of comics that they haven't even touched.
Right, but not only that, they can go off the rails and just write whatever. Like,
oh, they're going to.
And that's the thing.
Like the new Spider-Man film is going like that's what I mean. Like when that film came out and they started talking about parallel universes and stuff, I'm like, I don't think people realize how crazy the comics get because they get
right, and that's the
real
problem
crazy.
Is like it's fatigue. It's like Marvel Cinematic Universe fatigue. Like I can only spend so much time in a world where everything is highly contrasty and very saturated, highly poppy, and everybody's super quippy and shit. Like, don't get me wrong, they're fun for a nice ride, but after a while, like, I like my comfort food like a slow burn, like an SVU. I feel like the constant assault, and plus they were just getting longer and longer and longer. Oh my gosh. Like, I can't find the time to watch like a single episode of something in a row, like without something calling my attention away. And they're like, hey, come see this 3.5 hour movie.
Andy says DC is safe somehow. ...
How so?
I mean, DC follows the same thing.
Well,
they have multiple they have parallel universes in DC as well.
Right, but But the problem is when we're looking at the the mighty oak that is the Marvel universe and the mighty oak that is the Star Wars universe, and you turn around and you look at like the poor Dutch elm disease ridden stump that is the DC universe. Like no one is like, oh, we've had enough DC. We've always had enough DC, but they keep making them is the thing. So I'm not worried about DC.
It's because if I'm being honest, the two main people that always appear from DC are probably the lamest people in DC, and they keep leaning on those two people.
Zack Snyder.
No, the two characters, like Superman and Batman, are probably the lamest characters in DC.
I agree, but I've always
and
said
they're the ones
Superman's
that they
lame.
lean on all the time, and I'm like, Superman has zero depth as a character. He
Right,
is just as you see him.
That's my
boring
thing. Like
to watch.
what you're saying about Superman, I'm saying about Star Wars. But there are people out there who say, "Well, Superman's an interesting guy because X, Y, Z." When let's be real, he has no character depth. Like no matter what, if you think about it, when you live in a dark Zack Snyder world where everything's realistic, you have to start thinking of things on a real basis. Like reality never once entered my mind when I watched Batman and Robin and Schwarzenegger was running around saying ice puns. But in like Man of Steel, he puts you in a world where you have to start considering reality. And if we're gonna, get down to brass tacks, if you're an immortal god and you're getting shit on constantly by the lesser than nothing beings below you who are but dust cosmically. Yeah, it's hard to keep him motivated. Like, he can love Lois Lane, but in 10, 15 years when she's saggy as shit and he's still hard as a rock, what's going to happen? Thank God, no time passes in comics.
There's something I've seen recently, and saying Superman brought it up. I saw The Boys.
Okay.
I've watched season 2 of that.
I haven't watched any of those seasons.
I don't even know what it is.
It's
The Boys. The Boys is
Amazon,
basic. It's another. It's based off a graphic novel, which is basically like the idea of it is kind of a spin-off of
Watchmen.
Justice League.
Oh, Justice
essentially.
League? I thought it was more Watchmen inspired, but
I mean,
maybe
it's the characters pretty much mimic all. There's also like some Marvel type characters in there too, but basically it's like what would superheroes be if they weren't exactly good? Like they're there and they're kind of used for the public eye, but they don't.
Welcome to 2002. I read that.
I mean, this was written a while ago. It's not.
Yeah,
the show is just an adaptation.
But that's the thing is like by the time these fresh ideas make it to a different medium, they're old hat for like, because everybody's read the comics. Like everybody watching The Walking Dead who's serious about it read the comics and realized what happens when they departed.
After season 1 of The Walking Dead, I started to hate it very quickly.
Yeah.
My favorite character in the comics was a piece of trash in the show, and I'm like, why would they do this? Like, it's totally.
Who was your favorite?
Andrea. I think they killed her off in season 3, and like she was still currently alive in the comic books at the time when they killed her off in the show, and I was like, why? Like it made no sense.
That's another. It's been, let's see, how long have movies existed? 130 years, and the written word has been around for quite a while too. Has no one at this point found out, with over 100 years under their belt, what type of media and or property in a story works transferred to film and what doesn't? Like, it just makes so much sense to me as an outsider that a short story of about, 3 to 10 pages is perfect for a movie because you have 90 minutes. Like, Lovecraft is unfilmable, but his stories are short enough. Like The Rats in the Walls. You could film that in a short, thing. But people want to take these books, and not only these books, but like these trilogies of books, like the owner of the 50 Shades of Lonely Heart Grays. What are they? Etta James, who wrote those? E.T. Cummings?
E.L. Stein or something like that.
R.L. Rocket, whatever. It doesn't matter. That person, all those books, I'm sure once you cut out all like the dilly dallying and the fucking, there's not much plot to be
E.L.
had.
James.
E.L. James, whoever.
Ugh.
But like adapting, like I said, the Lord of the Rings, those are humongous. You're never gonna get them as good as the book. Like
that's a crazy one too, because you look at, they made 3 movies from the Lord of the Rings, and they took Hobbit, which was a very small story, and made 3 movies out of it.
That's what's nuts is you should stick to, because you're gonna have to cut something if it's a book. Like with it, you could make it a 5.5 hour movie, but you're gonna have to cut so much. And I think the reason why it works better as a book than a movie is because by the time you get to all the weird sex pervert stuff and all the weird characters that make you sick to your stomach and want to stop reading, you're already 800 pages invested, and he's drawn you in. Whereas like the movies are good because they keep everything that they need, but they feel a little flat because the bully character's not fleshed out. None of the characters are really fleshed out. We just have to hurry up and get through this fucking scary clown shit.
Yeah, it's why I feel like series now is becoming a better way to tell
Right.
those stories, which is why I think you're starting to see a lot more, even with like big name actors and stuff, doing more series now, because I think they realize that the movie medium isn't going to work for everything, especially like these long stories.
Anything. Like unless it's tailor made to be a 3-act structure, 90-minute movie, and like they made it for movie theaters, whatever, fine. But like now that we have Netflix, like the perfect case is Altered Carbon. They gave it 10 episodes for the first book, and it works out great. They trimmed just enough so that it's lean and it moves, but they kept enough that like I, as a huge fan of the book, didn't pitch a big bitch fit for all my favorite parts that got cut out.
Yeah.
And Joe agrees with PJ about Andrea from Walking Dead, going back to that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you've got these. Another thing is these characters, especially from books, people get attached to them. They get like really stuck on these characters. Whereas in a short story, whatever. Like if you read the short story and then watch. Okay, so what's the name of the movie? Mimic. Okay, have you seen the movie Mimic, PJ?
I don't think so.
Okay, so they made like 3 of them. They're based on, so the first one rather is based on a short story that was written in like the 40s called Who Goes There? And it's basically about, building tension, yada, yada, yada. Moral of the story is like they're giant human-sized insects and shit is fucked. And it's a short story and it works in 3 acts as you read it. It's like 7 pages and it's great. And the movie is pretty close to the short story because they didn't have to cut a bunch of stuff. However, like something like Relic, which I would say is similar because it's a weird, slimy type creature that comes in and does a bunch of weird shenanigans, I would say when compared to the book is a complete failure, even though the monster is sort of fun and the movie itself, contextless of the book, is fine.
Yeah.
But they took... like the trimming was so severe, they took 2 characters and smashed them into one. And the one character they smashed into the other character were my 2 favorite characters, and they both came out shitty. It's like if you took peanut butter and tuna and you put them together, it sucked.
Ew.
Yeah, that happens. That's why I'm all for like seeing more series come out. I'll be happy when they're like, oh, this great book, we're going to turn it into a series. Fantastic, because that'll give you more time to work with.
And I think that those things are worth, or I would give them more of my time. All the things I've watched recently, aside from Cobra Kai, have been independent and or like low budget or whatever. And those are the people whose stories I want to hear, because sure, I can hear the same, like I said, stories haven't changed since the beginning of time. You have good guys, bad guys, conflict and resolution. However, if I'm going to spend my time, money, and or energy, calories, going to be burning them on these things, I would rather the story be told by someone with a specific voice than someone who had to go through 9 checklists and had to make sure they did not conflict with the design of an action figure before it got stamped into the script. Because when you fuck up, those are the things you learn from. If everything you look at is ultra sheen and polished and like, Disney's throwing everything at this, obviously. But if it's too slick, all your favorite meals have something strange about them.
This is fishy.
If it's too perfect, it's like the Truman Show. Eventually you're like, this is too good.
Joe says the downside of a series is that unless you get greenlit for a full run, you risk just getting canned once the viewership is slightly down.
Not only that, but there are other things in play here because like with Netflix, it doesn't like they make things to grab new subscribers. So like for me, when they say, oh, this series or this movie got so many views or so many hits, and if it were released in theaters, it would have made X amount of $1 billion. But realistically, who would get up off their ass to go watch something that's Netflix worthy in the theater? Let's be real. So it's hard because when Altered Carbon came out, for some reason that was one of those series that they did everything right, and since just because it was good, like, and if like literally everybody who owned Netflix watched it, I don't know what would happen. Because they would probably say, that's great. It didn't net us any money. Like they would need new subscribers to come and get on that shit. So since they already have literally everything, like it's a fire hose constantly on, how are you trying to attract people being like more and more and more and more and more? And then you're standing at the door. Like if you came home and you open the door and there's a fire hose in your living room just disgorging shit all over the place, you'd feel a little intimidated.
Yeah.
Because what do you do first?
Yeah, I mean, Netflix throws a lot of money at series, and they probably make like 1 in every 10 series is okay that they make.
It's bizarre because like with TV, there's sort of an ecosystem there because if there aren't people are going to watch, advertisers won't give them money, so the show dies. So there's like a reciprocation. You get when if there's nothing drawing in the eyeballs to get that money, voila. But if Netflix does it and they say, hey, here's this thing, please come watch it. Everyone who already has the service, it's already accessible to them. So it's like, okay, so it's yet another thing on this endless trough. So I don't know, all these weird, like, and now everybody's got a streaming service. So it's like, how do you divide your time and money?
Yeah. You do get things like Stranger Things though.
Right. But for every Stranger Things, there's a Sharks of Venice. For every Altered Carbon.
For every thing, there's like 10 Adam Sandler films that come out on Netflix that are just like, what is all of this? Right.
For every Altered Carbon, there's The Ranch with Ashton Kutcher. Like, so, but that's also, when you say for every blank, there's a blank, that's actually wrong. For every like well-made, well-executed, well-thought-out thing, there's 100 other things that are looking to get dumped onto a streaming service for legitimacy's sake and or because they were cheap and or whatever.
Well, and then they can take off things off of Netflix that are more expensive than the cheap things that they're going to put on.
Right. So it eventually, like, that's what I'm saying is like, we saw it with Steam. It becomes a haven for shovelware. So when there's no barrier for entry or low barrier for entry, and then you've got Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, Peacock, Quibi, I died.
Isn't Pluto a thing?
Pluto's a thing. HBO's got their own thing. Star's got their own thing.
HBO's got 2 things.
Yes. So here you are, one person, where before, in regular life, before the internet, you could say, I want to buy a cable package, and it was all fucking $70 a month, and you got all the all the channels. Now you're spending $400 a month for 8 channels.
Yeah, but
I mean, can't watch it on
we
the
knew
ship.
that was going to happen once the streaming services started getting big. you knew that, and then people started leaving cable. It's like, oh well, now all the cable providers are going to create their own things,
Right,
and
but
it's just
then-
going to become TV all over again.
But it's not though, because the strongest will survive. Like, remember when Hulu and Disney Plus were two different things? That's no longer a thing. So now we're headed toward this one big service. So now you'll never have to leave your house to watch anything uninspired. And there you go. But they're going to only offer you the things they're going to throw money into. So
Yeah.
we're headed. I'm worried we're headed toward an echo chamber. Like, once we're all allowed to be in front of each other again, I'm worried that we'll have been so inundated with so much, entertaining yet bland food. What are we going to do with ourselves when we get back out? And
I don't know.
it's so, because let's be real. I think we have three streaming services. We've got Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Netflix,
We have Disney Plus too.
and Disney Plus. Okay, so we've got whatever. We got everything. I don't think I touch
everything we have.
I don't touch half of that shit.
Mm-mm.
And
I mean, I watch a mixture of everything.
that if you can do that, that's great. But for me, I feel like every service caters to a niche. Like, Hulu is more
Yeah.
about like TV, or what we used to think of as TV.
Right.
Like, because what's TV now?
They're who I use the least.
I simply because they have American Dad is what I watched it the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. Since there's only like the 4 and everybody's got them.
I only
Even
have,
like. Go ahead, Krista.
we only have Disney Plus because Verizon was like, "Hey, you want it for free for a year?"
Yeah,
So
that's why I have it too.
yeah.
But I mean, I watch the only show that I watch that's new that I can only get on it is Mandalorian, and that only comes out like once a year. We were getting a new season.
Jeez.
So other than that, there was no other reason
Is it?
to have Disney Plus.
It feels so weird now that everything is available all the time. To the shows that you still watch, like as they're being produced, still, and you have to wait week after week for new episodes.
yeah.
It feels so strange.
That's like Handmaid's Tale.
I'd be like, "Yo,
Have
bitch!
to
Everybody
wait.
else has everything all the time. What's up with that?" And because they haven't made it yet,
Right.
or technically maybe not, but it's so weird. Because
Yeah, it's
American Dad will drop like 40 episodes at once and be like, "There you go."
Get it.
And also, here's another thing that's like a bummer. Since all of our childhood, and now basically everybody's childhood, because it's always somebody's childhood, time and our memories are being divvied up. So now, Sesame Street is behind HBO's paywall, whereas before everybody could have it, and you didn't.
Yep.
It's
Yeah, Elliot used to watch Sesame Street, and then one
Can't
day
anymore.
I
They
go on to
said,
Hulu,
"No
and it's like,
more."
nope, it's gone.
you kids gotta pay.
So now it's Doc McStuffins.
Yeah, and that was what everybody was going to tell us, or is still telling us. Like, if we're going to get rid of physical media, and we're all going to move towards streaming, and we're going to have to bow down to these 4 mega giants that have everything, make everything available then. Like, don't have, like, if we're going to be... Okay, so here's the thing that sucks. Like, everybody wants to... Nobody looks out for the people they're making the art for. Case in point, like when Netflix had The Defenders, they got to make what's his nuts? Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and the Iron Fist.
yeah, which
And
was
then-
terrible.
Right. But they were, despite some problems, it was mostly going okay. Like, Daredevil was good, Luke Cage was good, it was really enjoyable. Disney says, we want to start our own thing now, so we want our characters back, we realize we can't use them for another 5 years or whatever, according to our contract, but we don't want you making anything new either. So who suffers?
Right.
Disney gets to sit on its fat ass on its giant pile of money, waiting for its characters to lapse back into its control. Netflix's hands are tied, cannot create more art, cannot support the artist nor the community it serves. And so Disney gets to say, hey, guess what? All these 3 out of the 4 characters we made that you liked, now you get to eat shit. See you in 4 years when we're going to reboot everything.
But then you're gonna forget that.
Yeah, that sucked because I think Daredevil season 1 had one of the best action sequences I've ever seen.
Yeah. And it came out of left field. Like,
it was
street
there was
level.
the scene where he was like in trying to save the young girl, and like it was like a single shot scene where he was going room to room. Yeah, it was insane. I'm like that. It was so well done.
Right. And so we get things like that where Disney relinquishes control of its lesser known characters because they're like, why do we give a fuck? Netflix takes them, runs with them. They go big because they are done well, because there's potential there. And, you know, if Disney didn't see money or dollar signs in their eyes when they looked at Daredevil, so they said, yeah, Netflix, go wild. Here's Luke Cage. We don't give a fuck. Netflix nails it, like blows it out of the park. Like Daredevil was good, but Luke Cage, I loved Luke Cage.
Luke Cage was good.
Yeah, Luke Cage was great.
And then Disney's like, oh shit, maybe we don't have enough of everybody's money, so let's start fucking people over and start canceling these IPs.
Even Punisher, like Punisher on Netflix.
That was good. Joe says, like when they canceled the X-Men comic book because they just wanted to cock block Fox till they send the rights back.
Like,
sold the rights back.
I mean, that is well deserved because Fox wasn't going to give it up, and Fox is making hot garbage with X-Men for a very long time.
Here's the thing: everybody's a dick.
Please stop.
Like when like in the beginning, all of these things were made to bring joy to somebody. Like when Jack Kirby or when Stan Lee or when whoever sat down to write all these comics, to write all these stories, to write all these books, to make all these movies. Whatever. If you're a kid sitting down to make a dinosaur out of Play-Doh, or you're a billionaire producer putting together a movie, at some point, the spark, the artist's integrity was there.
Yeah.
And that's what I respond to. When people say, oh, when your life is a finite amount of time, and when, you know, everybody will tell you can do whatever you want with your life. Why aren't you out doing blah, 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 blah? Here's the thing. I don't care what you do, but if you're going to be like, let's say movies is your thing, why settle for middle of the road? Like, why not go to the 9s? Why not stay with the 1s? Like, watch the worst or watch the best. Like, don't spend your time in this middle of the road mediocrity. Because on my deathbed, I won't be like, I remember when the Hulk punched a robot. I'll probably remember the time I saw 12 Angry Men thinking it would be boring as fuck because it was an old-timey black and white movie, and then really loving it.
Yeah.
Like, those are the things. Like, you know, I get how people will say, well, there's artistry involved there, but artistry is more than just like drawing or like making a cool depiction of the Hulk in a computerized fashion, whatever. Like, I get, and don't get, this thing, I take a lot of shit because I bash mediocre shit, but I'm not above it. I'm not saying I'm above it. I'm just saying I don't understand why it's so big. Like when there are things out there that can legitimately pull your heartstrings or like give you a human interaction or a human experience, we spend all of our time and money on big explosion factories that are like the sort of meandering roller coaster rides, and we get out and we sort of out of the movie theater, we get back into the light of day, we get into our car, we go home, we turn to each other, and we go, oh, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's what
I don't know. Are you guys ready for the second 2 Avatar films, which are I'm just like, why do they need to exist?
Yeah, Joe just said, speaking of integrity, I can't wait till they till the Netflix Avatar series comes out, so to see how badly they're currently butchering that. I know it's a different Avatar that we're talking about, but
Yeah, but oh yeah, no, I remember seeing the first Avatar and I was like, this movie looks good, but it's basically Fern Gully. So there is
Essentially.
literally that movie is just Fern Gully, except instead of shrinking, they get bigger.
Well,
It's literally
it's artifice. It's a fancy package that when you open it up contains a pet rock. Like
yeah,
you can
and
shake
everyone's
it.
like,
There's
oh my
weight.
god, this movie's great. It's gonna make it made like the most amount of money. And I'm like, everyone's just
But-
gonna see it because it looks nice. But
Yeah.
I'm like, it's they've seen the film before. You don't
if that's the thing though, it's like when someone points a movie out to you, it's a visual marvel. Like a screensaver can impress, but it cannot hold my attention for 90 minutes. Like maybe I'm too picky and I just like my characters to be interesting, to be deep, to be flawed. I like my stories to have like genuine conflict and not just like four people sitting around a table while Paul Feig off camera says, "Hurry up and be funny. We need you to be funny." Like if you don't have a vision for what you are doing, why are you doing it?
mm-hmm.
I want to see somebody. Here's why I like Steven Seagal. He's deluded, and his vision of himself is action hero. Is he? No. Is it fun to watch someone who's deluded? Yes. And that's why. Because none of his stuff is middle of the road. It's all like gut churning, projectile vomitingly bad.
yeah.
But that's why I like it. When the artist's vision is pure, it will be polarizing. The things that you remember the most are like the best or the worst. Like when someone sits you down and they say, what is the best thing you remember from your childhood? That's a reasonable question to ask. What you'll never hear is, what is something you spent an afternoon doing that you could have done something else? Yeah, I don't know. I saw Black Panther. And that's the thing. Like, you can say, don't get me wrong. I like I said, I like mediocrity. However, if you are going to tell me that it is just as good, or like, if you're going to defend something, back it up. Don't just be like, it's fine. Because I'm not attacking. I think this is the problem, PJ. Maybe you felt this too. But when people attack something that you have nothing to do with, why do you have to jump to its defense? Like when I said that, let's say one of my favorite gripes of all times, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer or whatever, Vampire Hunter.
Vampire Hunter.
I thought that movie was like a glad bag full of diarrhea shot through a potato peeler at a field of kittens. Like it was a confusing, disgusting mess.
Yeah.
And
it was all over the place.
Yeah, it was awful. But the way you would hear people come at me when I was like, that movie sucked, if you were just like, you know how when they do talking head interviews, like for documentaries, you don't hear the interviewer, you just hear the interviewee answer the question. Mm-hmm. Like if you were just hearing them, and if I off camera said Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter sucked, you would swear to God that the person being interviewed, their mother was just called the C word, and I threatened to stab them in the dick with a cattle prod. And I could not understand the vitriol for such a, not only just a movie, but a mediocre at best movie. Like, your pride was not tied up in Lincoln or his buddy Speed, or how terrible it was, or how all the plot holes were there, or how all the characters were one-dimensional, or how it moved too fast, or that it sucked, or that it was a waste of time. Mm-hmm. You know, if you enjoyed it, I can't take that from you. But when I have legitimate gripes, it's a pain in my ass for you or whoever to be like, yeah, it's fine. Because when you don't complain about stuff, nothing gets better.
That's true.
With The Princess
Yeah.
and the Pea.
Kayla says, I saw Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter in the theater, and the best part of the movie was watching my friend cringe at how bad it was. David literally stormed out of there
I was
so fast.
Still so angry. So angry. Like, the CGI horse, like, I don't even know what you want to call it. It wasn't like a horse race. It wasn't like a high-speed chase. It was like that bunch of Disney-style horses that a bunch of cartoon vampires jumped from one to another. I felt like I was watching a low-budget Castlevania ripoff, but it was in the West.
She said, years later, I read the book and liked it, so I rewatched the movie, hoping
The book has to be better.
context would make it better. It didn't.
No, it's bad. And that's why it's so funny to me. Like, with you, like, you love Star Wars, and I've obviously been taking swipes at it, but you haven't come back and been like, hey, but Luke Skywalker's my best friend. Like, it's an IP that exists. Like, nothing I say can hurt Star Wars. Like, I just think it's funny to me that when I'm like, it sucks, everyone's like, how dare you? Somebody, some heartless corporation had a room full of 12 people in suits that focus tested this material to the nth degree to make sure that it was the most pleasing to the most homogenous crowd, and you're telling me that it did not move you and that you are not going to bow down and just be like, thanks, please give me another one? Sorry, guys.
Do you have more, sir?
Yeah, like, I get it. Here's the thing. If you like it and it sucks, tell me you like it and admit that it sucks. Then we'll move on. But if I say it sucks and you go, no, it didn't because X, Y, Z, and I have to go, well, because you don't think. I'm going to pick it apart. And I've got evidence. I've got notes.
Lots
right
of
here. This is irrefutable
Pages
evidence.
of notes.
Yeah, and over the course of my life, I've probably written 1 million angry words.
At least.
At least.
And that's just this year. Maybe just this year.
That's only what he's written.
Right, right.
Like, if you were to transcribe, like, here, maybe that'll be a fun fact that'll make it to the Facebook. It's like, oh, if you wrote down everything that Dave has ever yelled, it'll go to the moon and back 900 times. In 12 Times New Roman or whatever.
Single space.
Single space. No double space. This is not a junior high level book report. Oh man. So, but here's the thing. There's so much to do now. So let's go move away from movies, move away from all that stuff. PJ, you have been writing, obviously, articles for your website.
Yes.
I am finding, here's another reason I like Facebook, and I'm not going to get turned away from it, is because full disclosure, can be a little long-winded. So when you've got somebody with that affliction, like, Facebook and blogging is like the perfect go-to. So are you finding that you're enjoying writing more as you're doing it more?
Yeah, because like a lot of times I'll just be, there are times where I'll write when I'm sitting at my computer, but there are times where I'll literally write when I have my phone in my hand and I just want to write something. So I just pop open my Google Docs, which is usually what I write on, just to save the stuff so I can use it between multiple things. And sometimes I just have like ideas I want to get out or like things I want to say and just get them out, and then I can fine tune them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like writer who needs to write things down and then fix it afterwards. Because I just get things in my head that I have to write.
I have got so many disparate, like, hand-scrawled notes and like 1 million different notebooks and pieces of paper and scattered notes all over the place. Like, but and that's the thing. You always think, I'll write, because your brain does it to you. You think, I need to waste as little time as possible right now, so I'll write as little as possible in this note, and I'll just remember it later. And then you come back to it, and you're like, Turkey Farm fudge pack, what the fuck what was I thinking? And like, I can't tell you how many times over the course of the show, especially like from the last 10 years, how like, I'm like, yeah, nail it with the notes. And then here we are, it's Friday, we roll in half an hour. It's time to like transfer all the electronic notes to a piece of paper so that I can I have no fucking clue what I was talking about.
Or he can't
I
read
write
writes it down.
That's true.
dreams that I've had a lot too. So I like go back and then look at the notes that I wrote down about like certain dreams that I've had, and I'm like, what in God's? I'll like have to like piece it together because a lot of times I'll like wake up and I'll be like, I need to write that because if I don't, I'll forget it,
Yeah.
and then I'll write it down. And
I live in that no man's land of cockiness where, and I'm sure you've done this too. You wake up, it's pitch black in your room, but suddenly you're wide awake with a brilliant idea, and you think,
Oh,
man, this is this is gonna change the world. And then you think, should I get up and write this down or should I pull my phone out? And you're like, nah, it's so good. It's so good. I'll never forget it. Like, did the guy who invented the wheel write that down, Dave? No, of course he didn't. He knew. So go back to sleep. And when you wake up, it'll be there. So cut forward to blink, wake up in the morning and you go, time to get, fuck, and then you're like pissed for the rest of the day because you talked yourself out of doing something that will literally only benefit you.
Yeah, I've told myself as a reminder that unless you are awake for more than 5 minutes, you will not remember what you
Even then,
thought about.
I have 3 times this week, I've had killer ideas. Oh, I've got also a story to share. But every time I'll be getting like on the off ramp to where I get off the freeway to work, and I'll have an epiphany or an idea, or I'll remember something, and I'm like, I'll keep saying it to myself, and I'll keep saying it like in my head, repeating, because I'm behind the wheel of a car, I can't drive and write, or can't write and text and drive or whatever. So I'm like, da. So I get in my car, and every time, run in, key in the door, pen, paper, sit down, gone. 3 times this week. But such is life. Oh, funny story also. So, my Highway Hats legacy lives on. And so, in real life, what happened was, Dominic, you may know him from this show. He texts me. He's like, I got to tell you something. It's the craziest thing. So, someone he knows, a friend, implemented my Highway Hats strategy for recreational use, not for profit. He obtained an Arby's hat from the side of the road, restored it, cleaned it, and now wears it.
Oh my God.
So if I'm telling you, as soon as COVID is over, I am hitting the streets with one of those old-timey vaudeville poles, and I'm going to be grabbing hats. Because, PJ, I don't know if there's going to be snow where you are now, but when that all melts, and all the snow's gone and the hats are revealed, count them. There's dozens of them. If we can get them before that snow hits and hibernation sets in, we'll make them mint.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've already got one hat. I didn't find it on the highway. It was on the floor where I work, and I sanitized it already. So that's the seed from which this tree will grow.
Hang it on the wall like the first dollar bill.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to take a picture of the first person who buys it and then take their first $1 and then be like, get
Ding.
out. You're ruining my first day, and I'll push them out the door. So where was I going with that? We were going to stop talking about movies and start talking about something else. But what?
You said you had a story.
That was the.
That was it. Somebody.
Oh, that was
somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, what you call it? When two traits evolve independent of each other but serve a similar function, like egg laying in mammals and egg laying in birds, like they came from two different, but they're the same. It's like the Highway Hats, except he stole it, and I'm definitely going to sue him. So, Nick, tell your friend that he should expect litigation. I'm calling Phillips and Associates, the discount accident attorneys, because the fact that you stole it from me, that was an accident that you made. And now, my lawyers. Yeah, and the best part about it is if we don't win, they're not going to charge me.
Good.
That's a really, how low do you have to be? Like, you spend all your time studying to be a lawyer, you pass the bar, and then you're like, hey, man, if you want to sue someone and we don't win, I won't even charge you. That's sad.
Eh.
Want to be a lawyer? You want to wear a nice suit? Like, live up the whole thing.
Play the part.
Yeah. I mean, we need accident attorneys. Don't get me wrong.
Well, and I think they usually, like, lawyers usually start like that.
Start as accident attorneys. Nah. There are so many different
like,
types
look
of
at Daredevil.
law.
He did all that pro bono shit.
Right, but he was doing it because, like, you know, he was a good guy doing it for chickens and goats and stuff. Like, these are scumbags who are like, did you slip at a store purposefully? Wink, wink, accidentally? That's that kind of stuff. Have you seen that? Okay, there's a medication out there, and God dang it. It's like, oh, do you ever get a headache? It's like, try this, but don't take if you're allergic to it.
What?
Yeah, I forget what it was. Like, it's a YouTube commercial, and I blocked it out because my filter
Don't
is
take
so thick.
if you're allergic to
It's like Effexor. It's like I don't, that might not be what it is, but it's like, oh, with prescription Effexor, you can, you know, your anal leakage will dry right up, but don't take if you're allergic to it. Obviously, like, what? Yeah, thanks.
People like me who are allergic to milk still drink milk.
But you shouldn't. The doctor should be telling you every day. somebody
Or like, because like being lactose intolerant and then being like, man, I can have pizza, but that pizza might kill me. But I can have pizza.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Since we're all free thinking and free willed individuals, we're allowed to abuse ourselves.
Well, and there's always a pill to take to, you know, make it.
Yeah, but
happy.
it only works so well.
Yeah.
Right, because your body is legitimately telling you it is ill-equipped at doing the things you are doing to it, and yet you persist in causing it damage.
Yep, and it wasn't like for an instance like that. Like I wasn't always allergic to it, and it happened later in my life because your body just gets terrible at breaking down milk sugars.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
and rightfully so, because if any other animal had the intelligence we did and they could like stop and think for a second and they think, wait, you guys still drink this? And not only your own, but others too? Ugh. Like, don't get me wrong. I love cheese. I love ice cream. I love all that shit. But you have to recognize it's fucking weird that we as a species collect the bodily fluid of another animal and do a bunch of weird shit with it. Like, I'm not saying I can ever stop it. No one's ever going to stop drinking milk, eating cheese, or enjoying ice cream. However, at least admit to me that it's fucking weird. PJ.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it's incredibly weird.
Because
like
when
the
you're
fact
a kid,
that you don't think about it when you're younger, but when you get older, like, well, you're drinking the milk of so many other things and I'm like, that's just so.
You know,
like,
when you're
could you imagine if like a baby cow just like walked up to a woman and was just like
sucked him dry?
Yeah. That would be so weird.
But that's the thing is like when you're a kid and you hear like about goat's milk for the first time. And you think, ew, milk from a goat? Because they smell and they're gross. They're disgusting barnyard animals. So do cows. Mm-hmm. Cows and goats are so similar. It's just one is smaller and slightly more mean. But from this bigger animal with 4 stomachs that just basically hangs out all day eating, it's like, yeah, that's the shit I'm going to drink. But this thing, ew. I don't know, I get that, but here's the thing. Science has brought us some amazing things because there are, and surely you know this being lactose intolerant, PJ, there are cheeses out there that have very low lactose, like you can still use ghee. And if you haven't, I recommend it, PJ, as a lactose intolerant person.
Ghee?
If you want to cook with ghee, it's basically clarified butter. It's butter with all the milk sugars removed, and it is simply the milk fats and a little bit of protein. So there's no lactose.
All right.
That's pretty good.
Look into it. Plus, high in vitamin K, which is great. And that's the thing. Science can take milk and extract all the good stuff and kind of get all the weird stuff out of it, and we can do stuff with it. So it's kind of a gray area, like with cheese and stuff. So that's why I'll give it a pass. And even though it's weird, science can do stuff with it. Like if it came out as ice cream, I would feel less weird. But since it comes out as milk and you have to do stuff to it, I don't know.
curdle it.
Yeah. So here's something. So do you know what, if I were to say curds and whey, are you picturing what that is?
Yeah.
So
Like,
tell me in layman's terms what curds and whey is.
I mean, what I would think is the only things that I think, like, I would just think of something curdled, and whey is the only reference I know to whey is like whey protein.
Right. So curds and whey, when Little Miss Muffet was eating it, guess what she was eating? Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is curds
which
and
is
whey.
terrible. I hate cottage cheese.
I know, it's disgusting.
It's gross.
But cottage cheese, the curds of the milk and the whey is the protein left in the fluid. So there you go, curds and whey. So when someone says curds and whey, you want some curds and whey? You can say, no. What cottage has this cheese come from? And why has it come out so early?
I tried because like when I was like dieting, people were like, "Oh, cottage cheese, and you can eat it at night." So I like remember they're like, you can mix it with like peanut butter and stuff, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So I tried to like do that, and I'm just like, no, this does not taste good.
This is
Like-
weird.
Let me ask you this, PJ. You see, being involved in fitness and nutrition, whatever, like the idea and the misnomer of a superfood is so frustrating to me. How does that?
Yeah, I
find you?
mean, they're like, I people have told me, or they'll like come up to me and be like, "Oh, like I have to eat this way to lose all this weight." I said, honestly, you can eat McDonald's every single day and lose weight. I'm like, it doesn't matter what you eat. I'm like, but obviously you're gonna feel like shit.
It matters what
because
you eat.
It's,
It matters.
but like, I mean, it matters. It just matters in quantity. what
no,
you eat.
like it doesn't though, because that's the thing is like. The quantity is the most important part, yes, but people overlook their macros. They say, "Well, I'll just eat a little bit." Like if your body needs X amount of various minerals and or vitamins and or proteins
yeah.
and or fats, like it's bizarre to me that people will think that a pill, like, "Oh, I need to lose weight, so I'll take this pill." That you'll look past the fact that pound after pound of food slides down your gullet every day. But people think like, oh, this pill or this superfood or this thing, like we have to get over, like it's no longer the 1700s and there are no more wizards. There are no more warlocks. A magician is not going to make a magic pill to make you thin.
I don't know. All these direct sales companies, a lot of them sell things that
I don't
do that.
My picture was put on a website that said,
Yeah.
Right.
you can take this thing and
PJ
lose
was
a lot
the
of weight.
victim of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they use my picture for that. But yeah, no, like I used to tell people all the time, I'm just like, I ate high protein and I was like,
Well,
I was
it's
eating like
confusing.
80% of my body weight in grams of protein a day. That was like my standard. I had to hit at least 80%. And then the only other things I would change would be my carbs and my fat intake would change depending on what I was doing that day. If I was being very active,
Well, so
I would have more carbs.
Let me ask you this. So I'm curious. So you're obviously into fitness. So you've obviously looked into probably the biological side and the nutritional side, and yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
So when people say carbohydrates, it means sugar. A complex carbohydrates breaks down into nothing more than table sugar. So since your bloodstream at maximum capacity can hold a teaspoon of sucrose, any sort of sugar, whatever you want, it can hold a teaspoon at one time. It seems bizarre to me after knowing that, like, where are the carbs supposedly going, number one? And number two, if that were just straight sugar, like if they said, here's a half a cup of rice and the equivalent in sugar, they're the same thing. Why do most people think the rice is great, But the sugar is like, well, it's the same thing, breaking down wise, and the same chemicals.
Well, I know that you have like the different types of carbs, and like some of them they break down faster than others. More of like a prolonged time, but like, to be honest, all you're using, you should be only intaking a lot of carbs if you are very active. Like, you should not be intaking a ton of carbs if you're not active.
But even then, like, because you can only mobilize a small fraction of carbohydrates because your liver will grab those and start storing them as fat. Because again, like, since your blood capacity is a teaspoon, everything beyond that, your body has to put somewhere. And,
True.
And
but
you say, well, if you're going to burn it off, like, we've all been to the science center and rode that recumbent bike where, like, hey, if you keep this soccer ball right here in the air for an hour, you'll have burned off one sprig of broccoli. So if you're eating, like, let's say 200 calories of something that's going to be breaking down into sugar, that's all getting stored.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, my protein number would not change on a daily basis. It would only change depending on what my weight was, and I would just change it accordingly.
I would just,
if I wasn't active, I would eat more fat. Like, if I was, I would actually increase my fat and lower my carb intake.
I would say you're saying if you were more active, you eat more fat.
I was less active, I would eat more fat.
Oh, I would while you were active, like, because the fat will give you a more prolonged burn, like, because if you were gonna, it's flash paper versus coal.
It could also, it depends. I think it depends a lot on not only you being active, but what are you doing while you're active. So like, I was running and lifting on an almost daily basis. The amount of calories I was burning daily just from that, not including, like, just by having muscle on your body, you innately burn more calories throughout the day.
Right.
So like, I mean, I was intaking, even when I was dieting, losing weight, I was still intaking 2,500 calories a day, and that was to lose weight. So
yeah,
but
they are cleaner burning fuels.
Yeah, I mean, I was eating protein in every single meal, and then it was always followed with something else.
So a lot of people say, a high protein diet, can be detrimental, especially in like the low carb community. There's been like a weird movement for like, oh, it's high protein, so you got to watch out for something people call gluconeogenesis. Does that come up in your circles at all? Because most dudes, that's the thing. Like that, never been a problem before. Like, but whatever. If you want to look it up, you can. But nobody wants to.
I would say this though too, because like, seeing as researchers around the world do research on like people who live long, like in cultures that they have longevity. A lot of things that they're starting to find and really picking up on is like they look at the diets. Like, what are the diets of the people who live the longest? Like, what kind of diets are they eating on a daily basis? A lot of times they find that these places eat more carbs than you would think. They're
if you can give me some examples.
Well, like I think one of the areas that has the highest amount of people who would surpass 100 years old, for instance. A lot of these people, their primary diet, it's like, I think it's part of Italy. I can't remember the exact name. I'd have to look it up. But they're like their usual day-to-day eatings is like they would eat pasta. Now they're not eating a ton of pasta, but they are not eating like the amount of protein that they were intaking a day would be like 40 grams.
Well, yeah, like the Mediterranean diet has a lot of interesting properties, and that's the whole bailiwick is like it's strange that we as a species are the only things that don't innately know what to eat. Like every other animal, when it pops out into the world, knows like leaves, fish, other animals, whatever. But like humans are still trying to figure out what is best for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also we've changed with time too. So
I don't think we've changed it as much as everybody thinks because, you know, like let's say realistically, humans have been around 200,000 years. And only in the last 10,000 or so has our diet really had this radical shift. And only in the last 30 or so has that shift gone from, you know, a semi-balance to a overwhelming, like, because so here's the thing. When you know, when you're trying to fatten up cattle, when you're trying to fatten up livestock, like when you're trying to make like foie gras, when you're trying to get livestock fat, you feed them grains, you feed them wheat, you feed them corn. It gets them fat. It gets them marbled and unhealthy and all the, you know. So why is it that when we try and fatten up our livestock to make those steaks bigger, we'll take that same food we're feeding them, be like, we're feeding them corn to get them fat. However, corn checks will make you thin. We're giving cows rice and wheat because it's cheap and it'll make them fat because it's nothing but carbs and they'll have to balloon up. But if you eat Life cereal, you'll lose weight, even though it's literally the same thing.
yeah.
So it's so simple and obvious, like, but that's the beauty of advertising is like a commercial can tell you this is something you need and it's healthy because they're not looking out for your best interest.
True. I mean, it's also like when you look at it, you're like, oh, this cereal's not that many calories. And then it's like the portion is 1 cup, and then you're like,
Yeah,
well,
and
try
that-
pouring
I
one
think-
cup of cereal and see how big that is. It's
I
not a
feel
lot.
Calories
So-
is the shittiest way to measure literally anything. Because
Yeah.
100 calories of bacon will interact with your system, your stomach, your nervous system, your muscles, way different than 100 calories of Fruit Loops will. They'll both burn and heat the same amount of water, the same temperature. However, the grease in that bacon will go to lube up your neurons, and the shit in those Fruit Loops will make you leak matter from your intestines into your bloodstream. 100 calories, 100 calories. Belvita, they'll say, hey, it's 100 calories in the morning, but it's all wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. Like divorce all of your like, I love this pasta, I love this, I love that. When you think about you're building yourself. If you were going to make another human being, would you start with Cheetos? Would you start with Oreos? Would you fill up the tank with Mountain Dew? Or would you start to get like if you think of your body, like people would take care of their cars better than themselves. High quality gas, high quality oil, yet they'll drink, you know, sugary whatever, and they'll eat garbage. And if you're making yourself, take pride in yourself. When you eat that Cheeto, you think, okay, my body's going to break this down and make me out of Cheeto. Like, you know, in every sci-fi, every good sci-fi, they've got replicating robots. And every best of those good sci-fis has the linchpin of the self-replicating robots that eventually run out of the stuff that they can make themselves that is good, and it becomes shitty. One in particular, they killed all the robots because they ran out of metal and they had to start making out of wood. I forget the show. But that's the thing. You get what you put in. So if you're a self-replicating robot, you're looking for titanium. You're not looking for balsa, my friend.
Yeah.
You're looking for steak. You're not looking for spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
To be honest, like I think I only ate the same 2 carbs pretty much for most of my
life.
Rice and potato.
I ate rice and sweet potato. Like I ate white jasmine rice and sweet potatoes. That was literally all I ate for my carbs. And my fats came from just innately eating the meats that I was eating, and I would have peanut butter.
I got to tell
every
you,
day.
now that, you know, like now living changed as I have and like remembering the feelings of like eating a huge bowl of something carby like pasta or whatever, and having that disgusting bloated feeling, and like you feel like you're swelling up actively, and then nowadays eating something that's like 4 times as heavy but like dripping in fat or whatever, that's super savory, and like by all accounts should have me feeling even more like shit, but it's completely different because you're not. That's another thing about like plant material, is when it breaks down, no matter if it's in a swamp or in your gut, like the chances of breaking down and making a bunch of like. So here's another thing I'm going to run up your flag, PJ. The carnivore movement is getting big because the push away from like the cellulose and the fibrous stuff, and this push against like the need for fiber. Have you looked into being carnivore and or paleo at all?
I mean, I've seen it a little bit. It's just like the meats that I would eat on a daily basis, like I had eggs in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I would have chicken breast at some point throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
I would have ground turkey at some point throughout the day.
I hate turkey.
And then I would have fish. I would have some sort of fish.
Where's the beef?
And I used to only eat beef like once or twice a week.
Why does beef get a bad rap? Like it's full of iron,
Because
it's full of
the
zinc.
fat. I was trying to keep my fat lower, so like even at like lean beef, it's still the fat quantity was higher. So I would only eat it on days where I was being less active.
But now that we know that your brain is literally 100% cholesterol, it runs best off of fat. Like your body burns fat cleaner and more effectively. I like fat, salt, all of these things have gotten such a bad rap in favor of sugar. You can call it what you want. You know, you say, oh, you breads, you grains, your whatever. It's cheap shit that breaks down into sugar. And
Yeah,
I get it. You love it because sugar is addictive.
Well, the reason
I mean, not you personally.
my intake of carbs was mainly because I was running so much, and that the carbs helped with the running, because say I ran 6 miles, the male would average about 150 calories of loss per mile.
You know what? A lot of like the big marathon runners, like, and they've been doing this like since the 80s, where instead of like, you know, because Gatorade loves to do that, they'll push out that stuff that's like that electrolyte goo that's basically just sugar in a paste.
Yeah.
And like, you know, running off of that, it's a very dirty way to go, and it doesn't give you much. Whereas like a lot of these dudes back in the 80s and even now, they'll carry, instead of that, avocado oil, like 1,500 calorie bottle of avocado oil, because then you can burn off, you know, thousands of calories, and it's this sustained burn because your body has to break down the blend of the triglycerides, so you're getting it from 3 different clean burning sources.
Yeah. Dude, they're ultra marathoners to this day still eat potato chips. They literally eat potato chips when they're running.
There's a guy, I wish I remembered him, but he was like talking about how he was doing all these marathon runnings. He was carbo loading all the time, and he was like about to die. Like for distance and maintaining, man, you want something that lasts. Like
I know runners who would literally make like peanut butter sandwiches.
So that makes
and
sense.
Literally put them in and carry them and eat them while they're running, because it's fat and carbs that they're getting.
But so also here's another thing. Look at it this way. Like let's say, forget about like the sugar content of the carbs. Like when they're, another downside of it is like the germs and shit love sugar too, because when like they incubate stuff, like you work in a hospital, when you incubate a disease, that gel they put it on has got some sugar in it.
Yeah.
Like,
I deal with sugary water at work now all the time.
And that's the thing, because it loves to go bad. Things love to grow in it. It feeds the thing that makes the beer. So why is it that you can put a cup of bacon fat in your fridge and leave it for months, but if you put like a cup of Kool-Aid in your fridge, it'll be mold in a matter of days?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, the sugar and mold is like a constant battle at work. They're like,
Yes.
we have to clean so much to make sure that we don't
These are the
create
things you're
mold.
putting in your body. These
Yeah.
corrosive things that attract fungus and disease, not disease, but like bacteria and viruses like the plague, because they burn, like, they love it. Simple organisms love sugar. Complex ones love fat.
Yeah.
But anyway, PJ, we've probably bored people for long enough. How many people we have in the typing square?
At the moment, we have 3, but we had
Not bad.
like 8 or 9 before.
Ooh. Yeah, I hope, in a time of crisis, having something like this, something safe, something boring, it's probably all right. Get your mind off it. I'm sure it worked for you, right, PJ? We're not thinking about what's going on.
The only thing that happened this entire time was I got an alert on my phone that said that marijuana has been legalized in New Jersey.
Woo! So that means in a matter of months after the lines finally go down, you'll be able to get some.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I love people's moral outrage about weed, but if that were true, how come every time it's legalized in the state, when it was Colorado, blah, 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 if oh, think of the children, like, how come everybody's in town hall fainting because they're so aghast that this horrible marijuana is entering their community, when the day after it passes, the entire town is butt to gut in front of the fucking dispensary?
Yeah.
How about we downplay the hypocrisy and we just admit to ourselves that we like doing things that are fun. And if you're a racist, fuck you.
Yeah.
PJ, do you want to plug anything to our listeners and our watchers and our viewers? Like your website, obviously. Is anything new going to be coming out soon from that?
So I am writing a review on a game that I've been playing. I've a post that should be up. I didn't want to put it up there in the election madness, so it'll probably be up in like a day or two.
Yeah.
It's finished. I just have to upload it. And then I'm also writing a review on a game called Fell, which is it's very quirky, and it's kind of like an old school RPG style game, but it's got some quirkiness to it, and it's just genuinely fun. And I've been playing it on my Switch a lot, so.
I feel like, now's the time to start exploiting some niches. We've got no one is going to say, why aren't enough people reviewing movies or games? Now's the time to find something no one else is reviewing and jump on it. But I don't know what that is yet.
Fell is like, it hasn't been reviewed by a lot. I mean, because there's so many games nowadays. Like, there's so many games. And Fell, like, I saw some people talking about it, and I was playing it, and I'm just like, it's genuinely like a fun game to play. And for people who like RPGs and stuff, like, and I think it was like $15. So I'm like, it's a relatively inexpensive game. It's on the Switch. Like, I think it's actually on everything, to be honest. But like, with audiences as spread as thin as they are, I think if you can get what you're doing out on a platform and people can enjoy it no matter how many, like if it's, whatever, a small release on the Switch, you're going to be releasing a small movie or a podcast or whatever. If it gets out there and you have a community around it, I mean, what are the odds of you being a star? Everybody wants to grow up to be a movie star or a basketball player, but don't realize that it's 0.0000001% of every million that do it. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. If you've got a small thing, like small games, like PJ's little community over there at Play No Save, like, this is where you should be coming to get your I guess entertainment, but maybe infotainment is more correct, because he does articles, people. He is a writer. Yeah.
So what about the podcast? Just, are we still, like, we teased it a little bit last time. Is it still in the works? What's happening?
Yeah. So I'm just setting up the day to do it with my co-host Boone. I think we're actually trying to pull RJ in as well to do like the initial episode, because we wanted. I think that'll be good. It's the perfect time to do it in literally like a week.
So,
because the new systems are coming out.
Yeah. Oh God. And I swear to God, can the Xbox just get their shit together and whatever. We don't have to get into it right now, but whatever. So, PlayNoSave.com is the site.
Yep.
Check that out for all of RJ's, PJ's, Boone's. Everybody who's related in that circle is probably going to be filtering through there eventually.
Yeah.
I guess we've got nothing to plug except, I'll plug this. So today I got the Audible version of The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So he was the Roman emperor from 161 AD to 180. Considered the last of the five pillars, and most people call it the end of the Pax Romana. So he was the last great emperor before it fell, and kind of reminds me of Obama if I'm being nihilistic. So I would check that out. Like, it's 10 chapters, 10 little books. It's practically free. It's kind of like Dante's Inferno or what's that other book I love so much? But whatever. It's one of those ones that it's so old that like there's 9 or 10 different translations. So if you're not like me and don't like the old-timey 1870s version, there are some recent ones that have just come out. But I'm going to say it was an excellent book, and then I'm probably going to go back over again because it's got a lot of cool stuff in it. And the dude lived 2,000 years ago, smarter than most people today. That's the best part about it.
Awesome.
So, guys, thanks for showing up in the typing square. Thanks for spending your Tuesday with us, and hopefully we made it a little less nerve-wracking, a little less stressful. So in the morning, we can all just
Keep on keeping
keep on trucking. All right, guys. So, whatever. I don't ever how to end these things. So we'll see you next time, probably Friday, and hopefully by then I'll have a guest booked. So until then, we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.